Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. This is a very special episode for the Zone Defense Podcast, as it is our 100th episode. So, in the comments section below, please leave your best Zone Defense Podcast moment from the last 100 episodes, as well as what you think about the NFL's playoff picture. Today, we will be doing our Week 17 NFL game picks on this 100th episode. How's it going, guys?
It's going pretty well, Drew. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm sure you guys may feel similarly. I'm a little deflated this week just because all my fantasy teams lost. So, the energy I wouldn't say is at the absolute highest for me, but it is the 100th episode. So, congratulations on getting here, you two as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yep, I'm in the fantasy championship in my redraft league, so I couldn't be more thrilled. Obviously, last year, week 17 would have ended the season, but obviously we have one more week of the regular season left to go next week before we hop into the playoffs. So we'll see how it looks down the stretch. Obviously, we'll talk about the playoff picture and all that stuff, and obviously, congrats to everyone else in their fantasy championships as well. But we'll hop into the news and notes going into it. Some quarterback injuries that worth noting: Lamar Jackson ankle injury, he's questionable. Did not play the last 2 weeks. They didn't have Huntley either last week, so it was the Josh Johnson show, and they got blown out by Cincinnati. He's limited in practice. We'll see if he plays. I expect him not to, but he is questionable for the week. Another quarterback injury, Jared Goff did not play last week due to COVID, but he's also dealing with a knee injury, so he's also questionable for this week. If not, Tim Boyle will go again for the Lions.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Jimmy Garoppolo has a thumb injury. He was limited in practice, but there's a possibility he could play. If not, Trey Lance will get another start. I believe the second one of his career so far. So we'll see what happens with those two guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Lance does start, but if Jimmy G can play, he'll probably go. And then we go into some bummer running back news. James Robinson, a fan favorite in fantasy this year, tore his Achilles, is out for the rest of the season. Probably will go into next season as well. So very tough for him because he was coming on strong, especially without Urban Meyer getting more work. And now partially his next season will be kind of ruined for that. Another running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, collarbone injury last week versus Steelers. He is likely to miss a game. He is not on the IR, so he could technically play this week, and he is practicing a little bit, but we'll have to see. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play personally. But another running back, Miles Sanders, hand injury. He's out this week. He's not on the IR, so he could come back next week, but this week out for sure. Darrell Henderson, MCL sprain. He's on the IR, out for the season. Also in the Rams backfield, Cam Akers could make his return this season. I don't think he'll play this week, maybe next week in a limited capacity, and probably for the playoffs. So very impressive for him, who had an Achilles injury last season. It's been 5 months. So the fact he's coming back could help the Rams in the playoffs quite a bit. With Sony Michel in the backfield, that's a huge gain for them if he was healthy for the playoffs. Another running back, James Conner, heel injury, did not play last week. He also didn't practice this week, but he is listed as questionable, so he could play. The Cardinals, they need him out there. They've lost 3 straight, so it's been a tough sledding for the Cardinals, so they definitely need him out there. Another running back, Saquon Barkley, ankle injury, didn't practice. He's questionable to return. In my opinion, he's probably a huge bust for fantasy. I will not be drafting him next year in leagues. And then one more player to finish it out with the injuries, Darren Waller. He got COVID this week. He's not out, but he could make it back to the protocols. So he was COVID. He was also coming back from a knee injury. So kind of those two compounded onto each other. I say he probably sits out this week, but there's a possibility, I guess, due to the new COVID protocols, kind of making it easier for some of these players to return, giving 5 days to quarantine instead of 10 days. Carson Wentz, notably, he got COVID this week. He still has a chance to play if he passes some tests. He's unvaccinated, so under the former protocols, he was going to be out for this game, but there's likely a chance he could come back. A bunch of other players are also testing positive for COVID, so just make sure if it's affecting you guys in fantasy, just to make sure you have a backup option and kind of keep note of that as well. But now we go into some playoff news. Obviously, last week, the Packers were the first team to clinch the playoffs. They won the division. A few more teams are now in. The Chiefs, Cowboys, and Bucks all won their respective divisions, as well as the Rams and Cardinals clinching playoff berth as well. So definitely more in the NFC side. The AFC is still jumbled up a little bit. A bunch of teams are still in the race, I guess you could say. There's a bunch of more playoff clinching scenarios this week, so we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Rams control their own destiny, obviously being first in NFC West right now. But the Bucks won their division for the first time in quite a while. Obviously, the Cowboys won the division, and they're going to be fighting for the number one seed as well in the NFC. And obviously, the Chiefs, huge win over Pittsburgh. They're going to probably compete for the one seed as well in the AFC. Um, and now we finish up with some Jags coaching news. Obviously, the new rules, teams without a head coach can interview candidates with 2 weeks left to go into the season. So they've already started to reach out to some coaches, notably Byron Leftwich, Todd Bowles, the offensive and defensive coordinators for the Buccaneers, Kellen Moore, former Lion, but he's now the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, Matt Eberflus, defensive coordinator for the Colts, and Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator for the Packers. They've all reached out to them and will likely get interviews as well. They also reached out to Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, but I think that one was denied. But they are going to probably get a good head coach. I believe all five of those candidates are pretty worthy of head coaching positions. So those are the news notes. Chris, I'll pass it to you. Is there anything worth noting on your side?
Yeah, I think not just for the Jags, but Kellen Moore is probably the most interesting name on this list. This guy has been a good offensive coordinator for the last few years with the Cowboys. I would say notably made this offense a lot better since he took over. I think he is a very strong candidate, and obviously that's kind of the. I think that's pretty obvious, to be honest. Anyway, I don't think that's some breaking news. This guy has been talked about as a head coach for a couple years, hasn't really gotten the opportunity. And I think we could see some more interest ramp up on Eric Bieniemy. I mean, this is still a good Chiefs offense. I know maybe there's been some struggles this season, but I still think this guy has what it takes to be head coach in the league. And there's going to be some more positions opening up. And it sounds like actually, I think I saw some dark web rumors, maybe even not so dark web rumors that Mike Zimmer will not be back next year for
I'm
the
sure you'd be
Minnesota
happy with that.
Vikings, and I will be thrilled. But a guy like Kellen Moore, imagine him in the Minnesota offense. I think that would be a perfect fit, and I think Minnesota would instantly improve a lot. So that's really the only thing I have to take away. Obviously, there's some big injuries. A lot of teams are going to clinch some playoff spots. Not really too interested in talking about that. But I do like the. I really think Kellen Moore is a great option for any of these teams that have a coaching vacancy or a team that's looking to potential or thinking about a coaching vacancy.
I will beg to disagree there, Chris. I think the playoff picture is very, very interesting. Because not really so much because of the guys who clinched. Because if you notice, there 95% of those teams are NFC teams, which means the AFC is still like just wide freaking open. And even something that I kind of forgot about is the Chargers are actually currently out of the playoffs. The Dolphins, I mean, we wrote them off for dead like several times. They're in a playoff spot right now. The Patriots were on top of the world 2 weeks ago. Now they're in danger of missing out on the playoffs as well because they've lost some games recently. Cincinnati's gonna like win the division most likely. I mean, it's just wild, man. So even though the NFC, I mean, those teams, it's pretty much cut and dry. It's going to be interesting to see who gets that last spot, or actually the last two spots, because currently it's the Niners and the Eagles have them, but your Vikings, Chris, are right there, as well as the Falcons. Shout out to them for just being a bad football team, but somehow winning 7 games. And maybe they're not that bad. Maybe we're just maybe we're not giving them enough credit. And then the Saints too, but I think the Saints might be kind of they got to get healthy before that. But yeah, I don't know. The coaching thing is something that I mean it's always interesting, but I feel like the Jaguars, it's like the same thing. Obviously, they were in the same spot this time last year, and they hired a new coach and didn't work out. So I guess I'm kind of in that believe it when I see it thing. And then injuries, obviously, all the injuries suck, but it's just part of football. So I'm not sure. Do you guys have anything else you want to add about the news and notes before we get into the pick'em? Okay. So this is what the second to last pick'em of the NFL season for this year. It's kind of crazy. I feel like the season kind of flew by. Which I thought was interesting. But first matchup we've got is the Bills and the Falcons. I just mentioned the Falcons a second ago. They're somehow in the playoff hunt still. And the Bills, after again, like we talked about, looked like they were probably not going to win the division. Now they look like they're probably going to win the division, but they still need to get this win here. So Chris, who do you think is going to win between the Bills and the Hawks?
Yeah, this one's really easy. It's the Bills, the Atlanta Falcons, as you put it, the Hawks. They're honestly, in my opinion, one of the worst teams in the league. I think they're complete for honestly. I think the Lions are a better football team. That's why I picked them. And honestly, that was a almost win by me. I take full credit for that
And me.
pick. Should have been a win because the Lions are so good. But yeah, absolutely. I don't like the Falcons, and they're gonna get crushed.
Yeah, I mean, if Jared Goff was playing last week, I think if you watched that game, you could have known that the Lions were probably going to win that game. Atlanta, though, I mean, Cordell Patterson pretty much resuscitated their season. If they do make the playoffs, a long shot, it's probably because of him. Pitts is also coming on strong. He's about to break some records as a rookie tight end. Made the Pro Bowl as well, so congrats to him. But the Bills, I think they're also hitting their stride at the right time. I was kind of out on them mid-season, but I think they're gonna hit their stride. And if they win some of the easy games like this one, they can lock up the division and boost them into the playoffs.
I don't have too much to add. I think Roman, you really, not to say that you didn't hit the nail in the coffin there, Chris, but Roman, you really agreed with what I was going to say. Basically said everything about how it's kind of out on them, but they have looked better in recent weeks. I really think even though they lost against Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago, I think that second half when they were getting plowed and they like came back and almost beat them, I think that was like the turning point of their season. And they had some big wins. Now they get a relatively easy matchup here, but I will say if Atlanta wins this game, it's going to make things really interesting there. They might sneak into the wild card, which would just be insane. Okay, now we got Giants Bears. This is the game of I do not give two flying craps about this game. Just gonna be honest. Just two crappy football teams. Let's just try and get through this one as quickly as possible. Roman, who do you like?
Yeah, last week the matchup that we didn't like was the Bears Seahawks one. Obviously, this one is just as bad. I guess really only thing notable in this game is draft pick position. Obviously, the Giants have the Chicago's first round pick, so one's pick going to go up, one's going to go down. So that's all I'm really cared about. The quarterbacks, it's going to be one of the worst matchups we've ever seen. Probably going to be Glennon or Fromm for the Giants, and for the Bears, I don't know if Fields is playing, but it could be Nick Foles. In which case, I'm actually not too bad about that. I'm gonna go Chicago. If you have their defense, stream them in fantasy as well. That should be a good matchup there.
Yeah, actually, I mean, you guys saying that the Seahawks Bears game was bad last, or was gonna be bad last week. Actually, was one of the better games of the week, to be honest. If you recall, I mean, I thought it was in the snow, and it was actually somewhat of a high scoring game. But yeah, Chicago's gonna the Giants without Daniel Jones are just, man. They honestly might be the worst team in football, to be honest. I mean, they're really really bad without him. Like I honestly have a little bit more respect now for Daniel Jones after watching this backup quarterback play, because I don't think it's all on him, man. I mean, this is a team that just doesn't have any talent. They're awful. I don't know how Joe Judge hasn't been fired yet, but I hear that he may be sticking around for another year. Which, sorry, Giants fans, it's gonna be another tough season for you guys
I I,
next
I
year.
don't I don't want to cut you off, Drew. Like you mentioned, Chris, they did say they will be bringing Judge and Daniel Jones back, but look at the Kenny Galladay signing. He has no touchdowns this
He
season. We're in
sucks.
week 17. He did miss some games due to injury, but he played majority of the season, no touchdowns.
He's terrible.
There was a stat is like Miami's offensive line is like 5 touchdowns or something, and Kenny Galladay has nothing. So hindsight, I'm glad that the Lions didn't pay him because I think Stafford made him look a little better than he was, but obviously, the Galladay signing did not pan out this season, and I don't think it will for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't even talk about this game that much anymore. Oh wait, I don't even care enough about this game that I copied the wrong thing. It was just gonna be a blank square. Okay, now we got Bears. Because I agree, I don't have too much to add, but on the Galladay point, I not to like brag or anything, but I think Chris and I were pretty on point with that preseason. I
Yeah,
think if I remember, I thought you also, I thought you also said how Galladay was like maybe not worth the contract. The Lions shouldn't have paid him. And it just with all the injuries and it just like he was good, but I don't know if he was like the number one bona fide guy. So I think we were right on that. And I do think, I mean, Joe Judge, I mean, they have had a bunch of injuries, so I guess I can kind of understand why they want to
no.
give him another year. But he also looks like a clown out there, so he's a slightly less bad version of Matt Patricia, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll move on now to Kansas City and Cincinnati. As I mentioned at the top, Cincinnati is currently the leader of the AFC North. But I think really they're only up by like game on I think both the Ravens, and then I think they're 2 games up on the Browns, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not out of the woods yet, and they have a really tough game here against the Chiefs, who are currently the only AFC team to have locked up a playoff spot. Most likely going to get that bye. I think it's my turn if I'm correct. And I love Joe Burrow. I love the Bengals. Obviously, he had a monster game last week, but I am going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs simply because they are the Kansas City Chiefs and they are very much back. I would say we I think I said this every week the last couple episodes is how that we just kind of smashed them for the first few weeks of the season, but they've just been really coming on strong here. It is a home game for Cincinnati. I think it's going to be a really close game, and I think this might be a big moral victory for the Bengals as they look into the playoffs. So I do think they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to maybe put up a heck of a fight, but just come up a little bit short. But Chris, who do you like between them?
I mean, I think this is probably the best matchup of the entire week, in my opinion. I think both these teams are extremely hot right now. The only thing is Cincinnati, you don't really know what team you're going to get if you were to pick Cincinnati, because I feel like they either blow somebody out or they get destroyed or they lose to the Jets. Like, come on. Like, I don't understand. Like, Cincinnati is a very good team, but I don't think they have any chance of winning a Super Bowl or anything. Whereas Kansas City, I think, is the favorite in the AFC, and I think they're gonna prove that this week. They're also the hottest team in the league too, winning. I think they've won like 8 straight. After people were like, "Oh, they're done," they were like 2-3. Everyone was overreacting. Personally, I wasn't really on that train. I figured they would get things right, and their defense has been the engine to kind of get that kickstart, and their offense has started to come along nicely. And they're going to need their offense this week to win this game as well. I don't think Cincinnati's just going to lay an egg out there. So, but yeah, give me Kansas City and what I think will be a fun matchup that I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, obviously, Kansas City did not need Travis Kelce last week, who was out with COVID. They obviously blew out the Steelers and that good defense. Cincinnati, I think they have much more to play for in this game specifically. I know Kansas City is still playing for the bye, but this is not a game Cincinnati can afford to lose, considering that they are only one game ahead of that division. If they were to get a win like this, definitely a signature win for their season would probably catapult them to the division win. It is at home. And just to be strategic in the pick'ems, and I'm kind of down in the standings. I genuinely think Cincinnati could win, and I'm going to take him here for a home game. I think this is
Oh
going to be a
yeah,
really good game.
I like that, Roman. I like you just putting you got to make up some ground here. So
Yep.
it's a big bold pick. As I do agree, I think this might be the game of the week. I don't understand why they didn't maybe flex this into one of the night game slots. I
Yeah.
think it'd be really great. Definitely better than the two, but should still be a good game. Next up, we had I think another interesting game. The Ravens are kind of frisky. The Rams they're taking advantage of the fraudinals striking once again, and most likely going to win their division there in the NFC West. So I think this could be an interesting game. Both teams playing for a lot, as I mentioned, especially if the Chiefs are able to take care of business against the Bengals. The Ravens are able to beat the Rams, and the Ravens can win the division. So a lot on the table here. Chris, who do you like between these two teams?
If Lamar was playing, I'd be prone to pick against the Rams just because I like picking against them because I really hope they lose and I think they're frauds. But I'm gonna take them this week. I feel like I haven't picked them a lot this year, to be honest, because they played against a lot of other good teams. So I'm prone to picking against them because they lose against good teams. Baltimore has not been very good lately, in my opinion, and I don't think they can win this one without Lamar. If Lamar plays, just note I would have taken Baltimore.
Yeah, I think if Lamar was playing, I think it'd be a much closer game. Stafford 3 interceptions last week, easily his
He
worst performance of
sucks.
the season. However, Baltimore's secondary is not good. Obviously, Joe Burrow torched them for over 500 yards last week. If the Rams can get together, especially if Stafford can have a bounce back game, this should definitely be their game to lose. And I think the Rams are going to win.
Again, I hate just keep saying the same thing, but I don't have much to add. Kind of like with Chris, I think if Lamar was playing in this game, because I think dare I say, I think both the Rams and the Cardinals are frauds. I think they both might lose in the first round of the playoffs, and that might just be a hot take, but I think that's very, very possible. Because I don't really believe in either of these teams. However, they are still very talented. If Lamar does play, I think the Ravens are going to win, but if he doesn't, I think the Rams will win pretty easily because, like you said, Chris, the Ravens haven't been playing well, and John Harbaugh's been making some dumb coaching decisions, so just lots going on there. Okay, now we've got Miami, Tennessee. Tennessee is still leading the AFC South, and they are still the number 2 seed in the AFC. So they can probably lock up a spot, and I think possibly lock up the division here with a win today on Sunday. And then the Dolphins, as we mentioned at the top of the show, are right there in that 7th spot, which is really remarkable considering they started off like 1-7, I think, and they just keep rolling. So it's crazy to think that they're basically right where we expected them to be at the beginning of the year, kind of in that battle for the wild card. I have a feel. I know where I'm going to go, but Roman, where are you going to go? You can start us off.
It's a nice story that Miami has won 7 in a row, but if you actually look at their schedule, I mean, it's not totally impressive. You look at their schedule, you see they beat the Texans, the Jets twice, the Panthers, Giants, the Saints on Monday night without Taysom Hill. So really, I mean, they haven't really shown anything. They've got lucky just playing a bunch of bad teams. I guess their big notable win was versus the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. But I wasn't in on the Dolphins going into this season. I'm still not. If they make the playoffs, good for them, good for Tua especially. But I don't think they'll make any noise in the playoffs. I think they can definitely slip out of the playoff picture as well. Tennessee, though, at least they're overcoming wins without Derrick Henry, and if they get him for the playoffs, a huge boost to them. Obviously, had AJ Brown last week back after an injury. He looked fantastic. I'm actually going to go with the Titans and ruin Miami's winning streak here.
I'm gonna go with Miami because I think they're one of the hotter teams in the league. I agree. They haven't had a ton of great wins in that stretch, but I don't think Tennessee's that good, to be honest. I know they beat San Fran, but with all these injuries, and honestly, without the injuries, I don't think they're that good of a team. But they really haven't been that good since. I mean, they beat the Rams. That was the week after losing Henry. But if you recall, Matthew Stafford played like a backup quarterback in that game. Since then, they really haven't been that good. They're 3-3, and I think the Dolphins are a team that absolutely can make them 3-4 over that stretch after the Rams game, or since Derrick Henry's been out. I mean.
Yeah, and Chris, I'm right there with you, man. Titans. I think I've picked them a few times when like you guys haven't, but I just don't know. I think it's great that they're a number 2 seed, but there's something missing with this team. They really need, I think, Derrick Henry back if they want to be, I think, as good as their record kind of shows they are. The Dolphins, though, are rolling. They're firing on all cylinders. Tua's been playing well. Defense looks, I mean, everything just looks good for them. And yeah, maybe they haven't played the toughest of teams, but I don't even think the Titans are that great of a team either, as I just said. So I think give me Miami. This might be another opportunity, though, for you, Roman, to make up some ground here as we near the end of the NFL season. But now we've got Raiders Colts. I think I'm starting us off with this one. Who cares? It's the Colts. They're going to win this game. I think they're a very good team. And also, let me just say, I don't think we ever talked about this on our show, but I will say when they came out with the Hard Knocks thing, and it was gonna be okay, Hard Knocks Cowboys and Hard Knocks Colts. If you would have asked me, it'd be like, oh, Cowboys are more interesting than the Colts. I think the Colts are way more interesting than the Cowboys. They're just, I don't know if anyone else has watched it, but I've watched a few episodes. It's been really, really good. And they seem like a really good group of guys. So maybe I'm kind of biased here picking the Colts, but objectively speaking, they're a better team than the Raiders. They're right there in that playoff hunt. I think they're really good. I think they can make some noise in the playoffs as well. And I think this is going to be an easy win for them in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I really like Frank Reich. I've seen some clips from the Hard Knocks, and I really like Frank. I think he's a really likable guy. I don't know if you saw the Quentin Nelson thing when he got COVID or whatever. I thought that clip was really entertaining and like just kind of showed how good of a coach he is. I'm gonna take Indy as well. I mean, they beat the car. I honestly am starting to agree with you, Drew. I mean, this is what you did last year again. The Cardinals might be frauds, man. I mean, how do you not beat a team where that has their entire backup offensive line? And I just don't understand how that happens. So in that case, Indianapolis, I'm going to obviously have them beating the crappy Raiders team that is trending in the very wrong direction right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Colts as well, but I mean, this could burn, especially if Wentz does not play, as they have Sam Ellinger on the field, but they do have Jonathan Taylor, so hopefully that should make up the difference. It's kind of tough to pick these games where you don't know if their starting quarterback will be in or not, because that obviously changes everything. The Raiders obviously won last week, nothing really impressive. It was against Denver, I believe, but Indianapolis, I like them in the playoffs when they get in. They can definitely fight for the division as well. I like them more than the Titans in the playoffs, just to kind of re-emphasize that
Oh
too.
yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I think this is kind of what we said too at the beginning of the year. The Colts would get off to a slow start because they had a really tough schedule out of the gate, and then they're able to kind of make it up down the stretch. And this is what they're doing right now. And even like last week, they had a big win against a fraud team, but a good team, I think we can say. Okay, now we've got New England, Jacksonville. Yes, Roman's already put New England in. I'm going to put New England in with my Mac Jones jersey on. Chris, do you have anything to add here? You going Jacksonville?
No. No. Jacksonville sucks. Trevor Lawrence honestly looks terrible. He's been the worst rookie quarterback in my opinion, even over Trey Lance, who's played in one game. I'm excited. Trey Lance, that was something that we didn't really talk about either, I guess. Well, I guess a little bit, but Trey Lance likely starting this week. I'm excited for that too.
I will mention though that if you were a Lions fan, like all three of us kind of are, we needed the Jaguars to win last week, and they obviously couldn't get it done. They're like inside the Jets 5, and they needed a touchdown to win, and they couldn't get one. So they'll likely walk away with the number 1 overall pick. However, the Lions will probably lock up 2 shortly. So I guess it's a win-win, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add to this game. Now we've got Carolina, New Orleans. I don't know. I feel bad saying this, but this is another game I don't really care all too much about.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's Roman. You're up here to go if you want to go first, because the New England game doesn't really count. Who do you like between New Orleans and Carolina? I think there's a clear-cut favorite, but again, this game doesn't have a whole lot of playoff implications. Carolina's already eliminated, and New Orleans is just kind of hanging by a thread there, especially with other injuries and everything.
Yeah, I don't think the Saints are making the playoffs. I think there are plenty of better teams ahead of them fighting for a spot right now. I expect Taysom Hill to be back, and I'll pick them to win because of that. But New Orleans, they don't have a lot going for them right now. Carolina, they're probably gonna have a duo of Cam Newton, or they might just roll with Sam Darnold the entire game because he's back. Their quarterback situation has been very, very confusing the past few weeks. It doesn't make Matt Rule's job look any easier. I mean, he's been getting a lot of flack for his decisions over the past few weeks as well. And he might not be the answer in Carolina. We'll have to see. But I think this team will definitely go into the draft looking for a quarterback in the first round as well.
Yeah, I guess I'll take New Orleans in this one too. I hate to be basic. Carolina just looks so bad. At least New Orleans has kind of been up and down. They can it with Taysom Hill, I think they can beat some better teams. Carolina just no, dismiss me with that. They suck. They're like 2-10 since they started off 3-0. This is honestly one of the worst teams in football. Their defense hasn't even been as good as of late. Their offense is puke worthy. I don't really know how else to put it, but I can't pick them.
Yeah, same. I think it's underrated right now. I think Matt Rules might be on the hot seat here.
Should be.
Yeah, because and he wanted Teddy, brought Teddy in, traded Teddy, brought in Darnold. I know it's Darnold, but even before the other crap, he wasn't playing well. Then they bring Cam Newton back, and it's just a mess. He doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing. And he was, I think, the beginning of the year, everyone thought, oh, he's this hot shot guy. He knows everything about everything, and he just it's been a really bad season for him. And then he fired Joe Brady too, which that we talked about that on the show. That was kind of controversial, I think. Yeah, New Orleans. I mean, I think it'll be a good win. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, which kind of sucks because I think they were kind of expecting to make the playoffs. However, it'll be a good solid win for them. Now we got Tampa Bay, New York. Again, anything anybody wants to talk about with this game. I mean, I think it's pretty.
No.
We can just move on.
No, I got nothing.
Okay, the Jets suck, and Tampa Bay is going to wipe the floor with them pretty easily. Okay, so yeah, we all got Tampa. Now we've got Philadelphia, Washington. So this is actually it's going to be not great teams, but Philadelphia has that final NFC wildcard spot at the moment, and Washington is 2 games back. So basically, if they need a lot to go right for them to make the playoffs still, but they absolutely need to win this game. However, I'll start us off. I think it's going to be Philadelphia. I think. Again, I don't know if they're a great team, but I think they're good enough to make the playoffs, to be in a wild card spot. So give me Philadelphia and Washington. I don't know. They're very inconsistent. They're very up and down. I don't trust them a ton. So I'm gonna go with Philadelphia here.
Yeah, I'm also going to Philly. I hate to pick the same as Drew because I need to pick up a couple of games on them, but I got a couple of weeks to do it, so I'm not going to be dumb here. I think I'm going to go with Philly. I want to talk about Philly for a second. This is a team I was a little bit high. If you guys recall, I was a little bit higher on them than I think the two of you were. Not like playoff level high, but I think I said they were a 7-win team. Not as bad
Yeah, you
as you
did.
think. I'm not going to take like total because I still was not high enough on them, but I do want to talk about how this team. Honestly, I've been extremely impressed with Philadelphia this year. I mean, this is a team. They're nothing special. I agree with that. But this is a team that was supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league. I think Jalen Hurts has absolutely secured a job for next season in the future. There's no way this team should draft a quarterback. They got 3 first-rounders next year, man. If they play their cards right, this could be. Honestly, you know what? I'm picking them to win the division for next season with the 3 draft picks. I think they have some room to make some moves. They have some talent on both sides of the ball. I think that they play their cards right with these picks, which I think all 3 of them are kind of in the middle of the pack as of right now. Can't confirm that completely, but I think they're kind of all around, playoff level because it's like, the Colts themselves. And I think the Dolphins, maybe they're the other pick. Yeah, they are. So they're all kind of around that playoff picture. But 3 picks in the teens, I mean, you could turn a franchise around. You could trade 2 of those. package up for a top prospect. You just draft 3 really good players, get a receiver, a couple defensive guys. I really, really like what Philadelphia's done. They're running the ball a ton around Jalen Hurts. You know, Hurts isn't going to throw for 750 yards every game, but the fact that he can use his legs, he's honestly I've been impressed with him as a passer. He's completing 60% of his passes. And I think this is a lot to build around for a team that was really expected to be bad this year. So I've been very impressed with Philly, and I hope they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Philadelphia has looked really good the past few weeks. Nick Sirianni, he's growing on me for sure. Obviously, part of that Frank Reich tree. So it makes sense why they brought him in as well. He's done a fairly good job. I think we were all kind of down on him since we didn't really know too much. We thought maybe they just hired him just because on a whim, essentially. But he's actually done a fairly good job. Hurts, you secured a spot for him in the future. The 3 first rounders, they've gotten progressively later in the round as time goes on. It was originally like 3 in the top 10. But now it's like 3 towards the back end, which I guess is all right considering that you did make the playoffs. So good for them, I guess. But I like what they're doing. I like where they're going. And for this game, at least, they should win. I mean, Washington, you could see the team morale last week versus the Cowboys. It was not high at all. They're fighting each other on the sidelines. So I think Philadelphia should win this game.
Yeah, not too much to add. Yeah, I think Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni too. I'm glad you guys mentioned that because I know I, for one, definitely destroyed him when he did that stupid press conference and just had some bonehead things that he said a few times. It didn't look like he knew what he was doing, but after a little bit of a rough start, it seems like they're in a good spot here. And yeah, I think it's a bold take, Chris, that they're going to win the division next year, but I think it is definitely very, very possible. Okay, now we are going on to Denver and the Chargers. So both the Broncos and the Chargers are fighting for a playoff spot. The Chargers have been in the playoff picture basically the whole season, but last week they fell out of the picture, and the Broncos have kind of just been on that bubble all year long. The Broncos, I mean, if they lose this game, it's over for them basically. And then the Chargers obviously need to win this game so they can get back in the playoff hunt. It'd be very, very disappointing if a team with their amount of talent doesn't make the playoffs. So a lot on the line here for both teams. So I think Roman. Yes. Okay, Roman, go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, it'd be very disappointing if the Chargers didn't make the playoffs. I think Brandon Staley has done the best job in terms of new head coaches. I like him a lot, but I think the offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, formerly of the Lions and other places, has not done a good job. Has not done Justin Herbert enough justice for the talent that he has. Um, they kind of dealt with a lot of injuries as well throughout the season, but I do like them to win this game in particular. But as I mentioned, they should be in the playoffs. I think they would be a force to be reckoned with once they're in. But if they didn't get in, it'd be a huge disappointment for sure.
Yeah, I another team I want to talk about, the Chargers. Just they laid an egg last week, man. I mean, playing Houston, this is a game you cannot lose if you're in a playoff race, and they let Rex Burkhead run for 140 yards on him. Yeah, I did start the Chargers defense in my fantasy matchup, and it is 95% of the reason why I lost, besides the fact that I was playing against Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. But yeah, the Chargers really pissed me off last week. Denver beat them last week. Ah, man. I'm tempted to go Denver here. I don't know. Is Teddy projected to play in this game or no? Has anybody have any updates on him? Teddy Bridgewater?
I can look it up and I'll
All
let you
right,
know.
vent it for me really quick. All right, so for now I'll pick Denver, and then if it says that he's out, I'm gonna change my pick. But I'm gonna pick Denver right now because they pissed me off. So I don't even care if I lose this game. To be honest, the Chargers really pissed me off last week, despite Justin Jackson balling out for me. I'm gonna go Denver. They beat them last time very easily. I remember that was the game Surtain had a pick six in, if you guys recall that one. So I'm gonna go Denver if Teddy plays.
Yeah.
It seems as though Locke will be starting this week because Bridgewater is still coming back from a concussion, but Locke is also limited this week, so I'd go with the Chargers anyways.
I will not be taking if Teddy was the play, I would take him. But if he's not out there, yeah, no way.
Yeah, I think I will say this. I'm also picking the Chargers, even though they are very disappointing. But they're just way too talented. Yeah, they had a bad week last week, but it happens to everybody. The Denver, though, I will say, like they're not going to make the playoffs, but I think they would be a playoff team if they were in the NFC. I think they're very solid. They're just the AFC is just kind of loaded with a lot of solid teams. But like the back half of the NFC, like where the Niners and the Eagles are at, I think the Broncos are either right on level with those teams or possibly even better than them. So. I guess shout out to the Broncos real quick. I think Vic Fangio too. He was a guy who was on the hot seat. I think he's probably safe going into next season as well.
Probably.
I also think Denver. I think they're pretty much a quarterback away. I think next year they can definitely go into getting Russ or Rodgers or drafting one in the first round. They have a ton of options, but I just think they need the franchise quarterback in there or a hot veteran, and then they'll be able to compete for the playoffs.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought, Chris, you were going to add something there. All right, we'll move in now to Houston, San Francisco. I hate to just be a jerk about San Francisco or Houston, but I'll lead us off here. I'm picking San Francisco. Shout out to them. Like very similar to the Dolphins. Started off very poorly. Where we kind of, I know at least I wrote them off, and they've really been able to come on strong here these last few weeks. Looks like they're most likely going to be the 6th seed in the playoffs, and they could even potentially make some noise a little bit. Dare I say they might be a tougher playoff matchup than both the Rams and the Cardinals. I feel like they're playing better right now. Maybe not the Rams, but I think definitely better than the Cardinals at this moment in time. They're definitely better coached, I think, than both the Rams and the Cardinals. So give me the Niners here. Anybody else going to go with the hot Houston Texans?
No. I'm going to go with the hot San Francisco 49ers. They did lose last week. Didn't look great. I think a lot of that was because Jimmy G was injured. And honestly, I think they're a quarterback away too, and they got it on the roster in Trey Lance. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play this week, and I think they're going to win. I think he's going to have a nice game.
Yeah, San Francisco, we pretty much know what we're going to expect from them. Dare I say, though, Davis Mills, the answer in Houston? I mean, he might be. He's done a fairly decent job under the circumstances that he's been playing under. I think they just need a better roster. Obviously, they'll have a top 3, top 5 pick in the draft. They don't have a whole lot of draft picks, but early in the draft, you can definitely look for like a Derek Stingley Jr. or even bulk up the offensive line. Literally, they can plug any hole. They'll get a good player anyways, but I think they're good on quarterback just for this draft, apparently.
Yeah, I agree. I think Money Mills has shown flashes of being good, and they don't have, like you said, they really don't have a lot of weapons around them, and they don't have a great offensive line. So I have been impressed with Mills. And then you look at it, if Watson does get traded, they're going to have a lot of assets, probably some in the upcoming draft. I would say most likely if they trade him before the draft, which I highly expect will happen. So I think you build around Money Mills, and you let the cards play out, man. He's not bad. He really isn't bad at all. He's got a really long neck, but outside of that, there isn't any flaws in his game.
Yeah, he's competing with Mike Lennon for the longest neck in the league.
Oh, yeah.
I'm also not too keen on David Culley. I don't think any of us were going into this season, but there are the rumors that if there's a potential head coach, a better upgrade, they'll go for it. If Doug Peterson available, he should be a Caldwell. At least any one of those guys you talked about earlier for the Jaguars. I'd take any one of those guys also above David Culley, but I mean it depends on what they want to do there.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they might keep him for a year. He's not been good, but like, that team sucks. Like, they won 2 games, I think.
It's kind of like Dan Campbell. I mean, was he really expected to win a ton
Yeah.
of games this year?
I definitely think Dan Campbell did better than David Culley because I feel like the Lions were in way more games than.
Hey, they just beat the Chargers.
That's true too. But if you look at the Lions, like they were in a lot more games, and we're about to talk about them here in a second too. But they were in a lot more games, and I guess you could also blame Dan Campbell for like choking those games away or not finishing the job. So I mean, Houston's such a mess, so it wouldn't surprise me if Culley gets fired. But I feel like it's unfair to fire him after this year because like, what do you expect with that roster? I feel like you could argue it's even worse than the Lions, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but now speaking of the Lions, we'll hop into Lions Seahawks. I am curious to see who picks what here because I think the Lions could win this game if Jared Goff plays. And let me just say, Jared Goff, I think is he the future for Detroit? I mean, I don't know, man. He's been playing pretty well down the stretch here before he got COVID. All I'm saying, like, he's definitely played himself into being the starter for 2022,
Yes.
which is what we did not expect a couple weeks ago. So he's definitely bought himself some time, and I think I will say, I'll pick first here. I'm sorry, I know I picked first last time. I'm going Seattle here, but I will say that with Jared Goff, it seems like he really enjoys being the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Like with Matthew Stafford, there was always this like, "Woe is me, I'm the quarterback of the Lions. Oh, I have no help with me." Blah blah blah. Jared Goff, I feel like he's really just like, "Yeah, man, let's just get to work. Let's throw the pigskin around and win some football games." And I like that about Jared Goff. So yeah, so I'm gonna say that. And as always, F you, Matthew Stafford. I hope you choke in the playoffs like you
Oh
always
my.
do. So, all right, next, Roman, you go ahead.
Yeah, I do like Goff for next season at least. I mean, it's potentially like his contract. That's the main thing. We're paying him a lot for someone that who we don't know his ceiling is not as high as potentially a rookie would be. So next year would be the opt out year after next season, or you can bring him back for 2 years after that. So we'll see what happens. I think Campbell and Holmes really like him. I've been liking him a lot more as of recently over the bad stretch he had in the middle of the season. Obviously, this is a very familiar opponent in Seattle that he's faced in the NFC West plenty of times. If he does play, I think they could win. But Seattle, they're at home. It's a tough place to play. It could be another very snowy game. The Lions haven't won a game. They have like a 10+ losing streak on the West Coast. I recently read. So, I mean, they don't really do well on the West Coast. And Seattle, they have Russ. As much as I don't like him, and he hasn't been playing that good. He is Russ, and they do have Lockett and Metcalf. So that alone should keep them alive in the offensive side of the ball. But it probably could be a close game as the Lions are close in every game.
I really, really want to pick the Lions. As you two know, I've been doing a franchise with the Detroit Lions, rebuilding them, and it has honestly restored a lot of my fandom for the team somehow. And I've honestly been
Pick
very
him.
impressed.
Pick him.
It's
You
restoring
know
your
what?
roar. Is what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I've said that actually a couple times, but you know what? I am gonna pick them. I don't think they're. I kind of hope they lose just for draft pick sake, but honestly, I've been kind of enjoying watching this team over the last 6 7 weeks since the bye. I think they've played a lot better. Um, They've still had a couple stinkers in there. I mean, as you recall, they just lost to the Broncos a few weeks ago and got absolutely embarrassed. But they beat the Cardinals, which is something Seattle has not done this year.
And Swift
Um,
should be back this week too, I believe.
Swift back, hopefully. Swift and Goff back is a major reason why I would be willing to take Detroit in this one. And hey, it's a little consolation prize. I'll be pissed if they win, but if they win, at least it'll help me in the standings here. Try to catch up to Drew. I think this is a game I could make up because Seattle is honestly they're my least favorite team in the league. I absolutely hate Seattle. I think they're super boring to watch. I think Russ is annoying. I think Pete Carroll's annoying. Him is gum chewing. He should be in a retirement home. The dude's like 80,
Pete Carroll on
and
the hot seat? Question
they're
mark.
oh yeah, he
Yeah,
should
for
be
sure.
fired. He should be fired. The only reason he has a job is because is Russ, and they run their archaic 1940s offense where they're not allowed to pass the ball beyond the line of scrimmage, and that's why they lost to Chicago. They lost to Chicago with the third string quarterback last week for crying out loud, and Chicago sucks. I mean, they have a terrible coach, terrible rest of their team. They still beat Seattle at home, granted, for Seattle, while they were able to run the ball in the snow and everything, and Chicago had to play big bleep Foles. So that's just absolutely pathetic. I think Russ is clocked out. I think the rest of this team is clocked out. Bobby Wagner said he doesn't feel like he's a part of this team's future next year. I'm sure he's probably not playing as hard as he normally would. And that's great for Detroit and Jared MF and Goff. I think he's going to light him up.
I hope so, man. I mean, and I want to say one more thing about the Lions because we crap on them a lot, and I like how Roman's just being quiet for the most part here, and Chris and I are just talking about how great they are because we've been ripping on them all this season. But like you look at some of these playoff teams, the back half of the NFC, your Eagles, your 49ers, you other teams like this, like the Lions win, like they beat they take care of the Browns when they should have. Justin Tucker doesn't hit the miracle field goal. They don't tie the Steelers. You look at all these games they almost won. I mean, is there any reason why the Lions couldn't have made the playoffs this year? I mean, I know they lost, but it's like they were very close to making the playoffs, and I think it's
Right.
kind of
And next year they have a
gets
very
ignored.
favorable schedule, so I expect them to be at the middle of the pack next year. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But enough Lions talk. We'll go over now to the Arizona Fraudinals and the Dallas Cowboys. I'm just gonna hand over to Chris here to start us off. I'm not even gonna say any introduction.
Yeah, I'm taking the Cowboys. Yeah, the Cardinals are trending in the wrong direction. Dallas's defense has been elite. They just beat Washington by 75,000 points last week. I don't think they're going to beat Arizona that badly, but I think they're going to win this game. They're home. Arizona's playing like crap right now. Yeah, give me Dallas. I'm able to I don't want to lose a game in the standings just because of my fandom for the Cardinals. Honestly, they've kind of been pissing me off as of late. So yeah, I'll take Dallas.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find like a scenario in which Arizona could win this game. I mean, Kyler Murray would have to do a lot on his shoulders. The defense has not been, or the defense has been all right. It's mostly just the offensive side of the ball, not as explosive as it used to be. Obviously, losing Hopkins will do that to you. But Dallas, man, they're just. I said it halfway through the season. They're my Super Bowl pick, and I think that might actually happen. Chris, you were 1 year too early on the Cowboys
I
there.
know.
But this team is pretty much solid all around. They're getting healthier too as the year goes on. This team could definitely make some noise in the playoffs. They'll probably get the 2 seed if it's a three-way tie between them, the Bucks, and the Rams. So look out for that. They could potentially host two playoff games. But I like them when I was seeing Dak had a great game last week. Could definitely do it again. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Dak Prescott because like he ruined two of my fantasy teams, but I think Dallas is trending in the right direction. And as we said, Micah Parsons, I mean, he's been unreal this year also.
Defensive Player of the Year, not just
Yeah,
Rookie of the Year.
yep. I think I don't know if that ever happened before where someone's it probably has to have happened before where someone's won both defensive rookie and defensive player. But I think it's definitely got to be him this year. Now we got Green Bay, Minnesota. Green Bay looks like possibly most likely the best team in the NFC, I would say, especially with Tampa and all their injuries and everything. And then Minnesota they're just fight. They really need to win this game if they want to make the playoffs. And this might be a Mike Zimmer's got to win this game to save his job potentially. But I'll go first here. Why not? I'm going Green Bay as that kind of intro maybe kind of alluded to, just because I think they're a better team. And yeah, it sucks if you're a Minnesota fan because it looks like it feels like you're the same team every single year where you're either just barely making the playoffs or barely missing it, and that's what's going to happen again this year. Roman, I see you going Packers also.
Yeah, I think Green Bay can wrap this up really quickly. On Minnesota, they definitely need this win to stay alive. Obviously Justin Jefferson is playing out of his mind. Green Bay, they're also getting Jair Alexander back. I'm not sure if he'll play this week or next week, but they're getting all their best players back. Green Bay, if we thought they were good, they're about to be a whole lot better. And obviously, Rodgers, this could very well be his last dance in the NFL or with the Packers in general. He won't commit to. He said that it'll be a quick decision on whether he comes back next year or not, or whether he stays with the Packers or not. But this could very well be his last season in the NFL. We'll have to see. But I think he'll come out pretty strong in this one.
Yeah, I took Minnesota when these two teams played the first time, but I'm going to take Green Bay in this one. That was a good game. It was at home for Minnesota. I just had a feeling they were going to win it. I got a gut feeling on this one that's going to be Green Bay. As much as I want to go Minnesota, I hate Mike Zimmer. I love the pieces on Minnesota's team, but I just think the coaching gap is so huge here that in Green Bay in the cold weather, I'm not expecting Minnesota to win this one.
Yeah, it sucks. It's probably good for you, Chris, because you want Mike Zimmer gone, but it sucks if you're a Minnesota fan. Okay, now we've got Cleveland and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, basically, this game, whoever loses this game, they're not making the playoffs. I think it's safe to say. But whoever wins this game has a really good shot at possibly sneaking into that wild card. I would say it's more disappointing if you're a Browns fan. I mean, I think very much so. They were banking on winning the division this year. I feel like Pittsburgh's exactly where we kind of expected them to be. Fringe playoff contender, but the Browns they're hanging right there, and it's very disappointing. They really need to win this game if they want to not be a disappointment. So, Chris, who do you like between the Steelers and the Browns?
Can I pick neither team? No, this one's tough because I don't think Cleveland's that great of a team, but Pittsburgh has looked so miserable the last couple of weeks on offense. I mean, Big Ben has never looked worse than they have. I mean, they just lost by 28 to the Chiefs, and I feel like the Chiefs didn't even have to break a sweat to beat them. I'm going to take Cleveland. I think their running game, Pittsburgh's been getting gashed on the ground too. I think their running game can do a lot of work in this one. They'll have Chubb out there. Baker sucks. It's basically a battle of who can be a less trash quarterback, and I think Baker has a little more upside. I know he looked bad against Green Bay, but he kind of turned it around in the second half. I thought a couple of those picks weren't his fault, and they competed with Green Bay. So Pittsburgh, if I do recall, didn't look so good against Green Bay earlier in the year. I remember that game. I don't think they competed out particularly well in that one, so I'm going to take Cleveland.
Yeah, Baker had like 4 interceptions, although not all of them were his fault. He's definitely not been playing better. I mean, it's definitely making the decision a lot easier in terms of why you want to bring him back as your franchise quarterback. I still think he can be very good, but the wide receivers he has are not very good at all. So I think they can definitely look to draft one in the draft, maybe help him out a little bit. I'm glad you picked the Browns because I wanted to split on this game, so I'm gonna go Pittsburgh. I think Roethlisberger will be better. I think they just have a better overall team. Najee, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. I think they all can do a good job. But Cleveland's defense is gonna have to keep them in this game. But like you mentioned, I'd rather not pick this game. I might not even watch this game in general.
Yeah, I'm a tough spot here. Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I wish one of you guys. I was just gonna go whatever the opposite you guys picked, and then you guys kind of screwed me over here and picked two different teams. Um, I'll go Cleveland just for the heck of it. And yeah, I'll go Cleveland only because I feel like they need this game more. As I kind of said at the beginning, because Pittsburgh, realistically speaking, we never knew if they were for sure going to make the playoffs or not. The Browns, they really need this game. Baker Mayfield's, as you guys both mentioned, is kind of playing for his future in a way, which is kind of crazy because he was a number one overall pick not too long ago. So a lot on the line here. I feel like Cleveland just has a little more to play for because Pittsburgh, like Ben's probably. I mean, I guess you could say Ben, like, hey, this might be his last season. Blah blah blah. I don't know.
This would be his last home game potentially with
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
So
So
lots going on here, but I'll go Cleveland just for the heck of it. Who cares? Like I said, I'm probably not going to be watching this game that much either because it's not great. Because I don't think even if the winner of this game potentially can still make the playoffs, I don't think either of them are going to make the playoffs. And even if one of them does, they're not going to make any noise, which really sucks. Because Cleveland was a potential Super Bowl contender, especially after their playoff performance last year. So, okay, unless anyone else has anything to add with the pick 'em, we can hop in now to the fantasy picks of the week. Roman, you can start us off.
sure. I'm gonna go with a running back. This could just be this is an easy pick and matchup. I'm gonna go Ronald Jones, running back for the Buccaneers against the Jets. Had a good game last week against the Panthers, although Keyshawn Vaughn ran for like a 55-yard touchdown as well. So I guess I kind of took away a lot of the yards away from Ronald Jones, but against a very porous defense, I mean, you're starting pretty much any Buccaneer that you have. So Ronald Jones, Antonio Brown, Gronk, Brady, obviously. So I think Ronald Jones will have a very good game. So I think he's definitely a must start this week.
Yeah, I had him he was a guy I added to mine after we went through the Tampa Bay New York game. Uh, yeah, it's a no-brainer pick. He's a smash top 10 plays. We got to really have much to add to that. So I guess I'll get into my pick then, and then Drew can do his couple. My first pick, despite picking the Detroit Lions, I'm going to go with the running back for the Seattle Seahawks. That's Rashad Penny. He's been absolutely balling as of late. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown last week. Detroit's run defense has kind of been hit or miss this year. You know, they do give up a lot of points to the running back, but they have been a little bit better as of late. But I am going to go with Rashad Penny. I think he's a top 12 back this week. Unfortunately for me, I will not get to use him for more than a third place matchup because I don't have any teams in the championship. But Penny is in the league where I thought I might make it, and unfortunately was unable to because Travis Kelce missed last week. So, but Penny is a good play this week.
Yeah, I got nothing much to add there. He's been coming on strong the past few weeks. He went off 2 weeks ago. That kind of a bad week against the Rams, but kind of got on track this week against the Lions. I have no problem with that as well. If you have to start him, definitely go for it. But I'd also like look to pivot for elsewhere if you could.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add there with Penny. So I'll hop into my two picks. Both of them are for the same team that I was crapping on a lot during our pick 'em. That's the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going with Sony Michel. Last week he had just a monster game. Not a great in terms of like rushes per carry. He had 27 for 131, which that's a lot of carries and a touchdown as well. So he had a monster game. I don't know if he's going to have that same level of a great performance this week, but he is playing a Ravens defense that isn't is pretty average against the run. As they showed last week, they're going to feed him the ball a lot. It's a little worrisome with Cam Akers coming back, but I don't think they're going to give him a ton of run with his first game back coming from that series of an injury. So I think Sony Michel is still going to be a really good play. I think he can really help you out in fantasy playoffs. And then the other guy is obviously you could go Cooper Kupp. He's obviously really good, but I'm going to go with Odell Beckham Jr. He's been kind of touchdown dependent since he went to the Rams. He has had double digits. I think let me see, four of his last 5 games, he's had double digits, but most of it's because of touchdowns. He's only topped over 80 yards once. And like last week, he had only 4 for 37, but he had that touchdown, which still helped him to have a reasonably good fantasy performance. But they're playing the Ravens, as I mentioned, with Sony Michel, and the Ravens are the 28th against fantasy wide receivers. So really pretty bad. So I think I almost like Odell even a little bit more than I like Sony Michel, just because the Ravens are not great against receivers. Even though I don't like Matthew Stafford, he is still a good quarterback, and I think he's going to be able to find Odell. And I think even if he doesn't have a monster yardage game, it does seem like he likes finding Odell in the end zone, and I think they'll be able to do that against Baltimore.
Well, Drew, I think he will have a good yardage game because he was actually Matthew Stafford, my second fantasy pick of the week.
There we go.
Obviously, he had
Of
3
course it is.
interceptions last week, couldn't crack 200 yards. But look at what Joe Burrow did last week to Baltimore's bad
Joe
secondary.
Burrow's better than Matt Stafford, though.
I won't go on the record and say that just yet, but I think Stafford is going to do a good job. I mean, a bad defense, I think he could definitely tear him apart. I mean, he's definitely need a bounce back game, especially with the division on the line. Baltimore, I mean, I think it'll be a close game if Lamar plays. If he doesn't play, this game could be wrapped up pretty quickly. But I like Stafford in this matchup as well. And I'll also mention one other player before I pass it off. T. Higgins, wide receiver for the Bengals, coming on strong the last few weeks. 12 receptions last week for close to 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kansas City's pass defense is not terrible by any means, but I think this game could be a shootout in many terms. So Cincinnati, I think there's plenty of fantasy weapons all across the board for both teams. But Higgins, don't shy away from starting him. He can definitely do what he did last week and what he has been doing for the last second half of the season, pretty much. So I like him as a start as well.
Yeah, it's not a surprise you went with Stafford, since you're a major homer for him. But honestly, I seem to recall a matchup in Week 16 where Matt Stafford was playing a bottom 5 pass defense and threw 3 interceptions. Yep, he was playing the Minnesota Vikings last week, and he did exactly that. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what it is, but the fact I think Drew's right there with me. I just can't get behind this dude. I think they're gonna choke in the playoffs. I feel like every time he people turn the corner on Stafford, he ends up shitting the bed. That's just what he does. He's just not. I just don't think he's an elite quarterback. That's just my opinion. I think he's on a really good roster, a really talented roster, and they've lost to a lot of the good teams in the league, and they beat up on the weak. That's kind of how it goes, and they really haven't. They've won a game or two against good teams all season. So I don't have a lot to add to that, but
I think many people. I just wanted to give Stafford the boost of confidence this week because I think many people are scared or would be scared to
I would
start
be.
Stafford. Or yeah, I mean it's definitely justified after the performance he had last week. But look at that, the susceptible defense, and if he just plays better, I think it was just a very uncharacteristic game for Stafford. And as objectively as I can be, I mean I think the matchup suits well for him. He has weapons all over the field, so I think they'll win. We all agree that they'll win, but I think especially if Baltimore turns it over a few times, Stafford can capitalize on those opportunities, and I think the matchup just shoots well for him in general.
Guess we'll see, man. You better hope so, because this is a pick that you've made a lot this year. So if he blows it for teams in the
I've barely picked
playoffs,
Stafford this year in fantasy, by the way, for the record.
you tend to pick the Rams a lot, and we both know why. But I'm gonna enough about Stafford. I don't feel like talking about him anymore. I do agree with the T. Higgins pick, and I think that game is going to be a shootout, and that's why I will go with the Kansas City running back Darrell Williams, because I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to miss. So if he does play, I would then I guess replace Clyde with this. I think it's just starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs is going to have a good game. Darrell Williams has been unbelievable when Clyde misses. He averages like 18 fantasy points a game. Cincinnati's not some pushover matchup, but they do allow points, and they're going to in this game, I think, because it's going to be a shootout. And Kansas City running backs have been a lot more effective in the red zone this year than they were last year. I think that Mahomes has regressed a tiny bit, not even a tiny bit. He's regressed a decent amount, especially in the red zone. So I think that Darrell Williams could be in line for a big day, and if honestly, even if Clyde's back in, I think he's going to be banged up, and I think Darrell will get plenty of opportunity to warrant a flex start. But without him, I'd rather play him than Rojo. I'd rather play him than Rashad Penny. I think he's a top 5 locked in back.
I don't have too much to add here. I feel like I'm being a loser because I don't have anything to add, but you've touched on all the good points. Darrell Williams is a nice play.
Yep. Also, just as I mentioned before, if you have a fantasy option in this game, start I think this could definitely be a shootout game, as I already mentioned. But this game is definitely game of the week, and those are the reasons why, just because all the fantasy matchups, all the stars playing in this game.
Yeah. And even beyond fantasy, all the playoff implications
Mhm.
as well. All right. You guys have anything else you want to add here before we get out and finish this 100th episode of the Zone Defense Podcast?
Well, it's been a pleasure for sure. We split on a lot of games. Hopefully, it reflects in the standings next week. I have a lot of catching up to do. So hopefully, here's to 100 more, guys. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be weird though if the standings stay the way they are right now, because it'd be the same exact order that it was last year, which is kind of crazy to think of.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll have to wait and see though. But yeah, this has been fun. Obviously, all the 100 episodes we've done, been a blast, and it's been a pleasure sharing them with you guys. But once again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. We do these episodes of the NFL every single week, along with fantasy analysis and breaking news episodes. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us on Apple Podcasts. So you make sure you don't miss any of that awesome content. Also, smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought about our picks, who you're most surprised is making the playoffs or looking like they're going to make the playoffs, who you're most disappointed with that they're maybe not as good as they were supposed to be, like maybe the Chargers or the Browns. Let us know about how your fantasy playoffs are going. Let us know anything about football or life or anything like that. We love reading your comments and try to respond to them as quickly as we can. But once again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
See ya.